Hi and welcome to Story to Satori. My name is Janvi Katti and I have 2 decades of experience as a soft skills and mindful leadership coach in the corporates. You must be wondering what the Story to Satori is all about. Let me tell you my story so that you can relate to what is Story to Satori. When I became a trainer after a stint in a 9 to 5 job, I realized that this was something that I was so passionate about because it was all the time on my mind to become something in the field of where I am actually expressing. That was my whole intention, was to become a good communicator. And what better way to do this than to actually become a trainer, and that too in the area of soft skills and leadership. So enjoyed this space, and while I was doing and having a great time developing others as well as in the process developing my own self, because every time I did a training there were lots of wisdom nuggets that I could take back home and grow personally. I just stumbled onto coaching one fine day when my friend introduced to coaching, and then I understood, oh, this is something that it is not just my 9 to 5 passion, but it's my calling. Because in coaching, what we do is, or what I did or am still doing is, I have to hold the space of a non-judgmental listener. And this listening is not passive, it's actually active, but then I am only asking questions but not giving my opinion to the person who is getting coached. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because in this space of coaching others, when I was being non-judgmental, and then when I was actually practicing active listening, asking powerful questions, increasing my own curiosity about others and increasing my levels of empathy to understand from where the other person is coming, standing in the other person's shoes, and listening in a way that I hold the space thinking the other person has 100% potential. So I don't give my own views or opinions of how the other person has to be or needs to do. So this whole space gave me so much power to develop myself and others that I felt so close to mindfulness. And that time, it was a decade ago, I did not even know mindfulness, what mindfulness was. And in fact, I think mindfulness as a word or as a as a activity or as a practice was not existing very much so during, I mean, even if it was there, it was not being so rampantly practiced by all the people, the corporates, and nowadays you hear so much about talk about mindfulness. So excuse me. So this actually gave me that space of mindfulness, and in fact we were actually told to create our own research during the learning part, getting certified as a coach. And then I did research on mindfulness, because that was something like, that was the time when I actually understood about mindfulness. And because my power tool and my coaching model, which I call as the model is called focus and the power tool is called being versus doing, these were based on mindfulness and without my real knowledge about what mindfulness is. Now, just like how I stumbled onto coaching, I stumbled onto this whole new practice about mindfulness. And I understood that as a coach, I am doing a bit of practicing mindfulness unconsciously, and then I really started practicing it consciously. Now, why am I telling you all this? The reason is, mindfulness is a wonderful practice which is so powerful that once you start understanding what it is and what you could gain by practicing it, it just changes your attitude towards life, towards your own self. It gives you the power to sustain and deal with the pressures of life, the stresses of life, your own anxieties, your panic, and then your fears, or your whatever the pressures and the stresses that you are going through either in your job, in your relationships, or in your financial circumstances. So let me tell you, how I dealt, because I am telling you my story so that you understand why Story to Satori was actually created, got created in the process. Now, as I started practicing mindfulness, the first things that I really adapted in my life to, and then also started solving or putting things in place, was my emotions, and mainly the emotion like anger. Let me tell, I mean, there are other emotions as well. Let me take one example, anger. So earlier, before I was practicing mindfulness, I would just get angry and then burst out, and it would take me, I think, a week or so, or a couple of weeks, or sometimes even months, to realize, that, oh, I had got angry, and then that really took a toll on these issues in my life. Or it could be relationships with close people, or it could be losing an opportunity, or it could be something of importance, or it could be my own peace of mind and my own composure. So that is so important. And then maybe it also affected my health on the physical level, and being pretty strong, it didn't impact, and then it didn't really, but if person is not very strong physically, it could impact on a physical level as well. So what I did was, I started becoming more and more aware about anger. Instead of controlling it, I would just start increasingly observing my emotion, and then making some affirmations like, I'm calm and peaceful and serene. That's it. And this became kind of mantra for me, and I did it so many times that, in fact, whenever I would get up from sleep, or whenever suddenly it would pop up from my as if it's like a software that has been embedded in my mind, and then I would get these affirmations going like, I'm calm, serene and peaceful, I'm happy and contented, and so many affirmations I was making, especially the calm and serene and peaceful. So what happened was, when I started observing this emotion, and in a non-judgmental way, I never rebuked myself, I never scolded, or I didn't feel disempowered because I'm getting angry, because that is the reality, right? And then how can you just try to control it? It's an emotion, it's an energy, right, in motion, and then it just bursts out. So you cannot control it. So all that I did was, I started observing it like a observer. I mean, you just, as if I'm a neutral observer. I'm not giving any kind of a active participation, just standing back and looking at my anger. And as this started happening, and with my affirmations, and with small little other practices like just going for a walk as soon as I get angry, and then trying to breathe fresh air, either go to the terrace or go outside, get some fresh air, drink some water. But those are very, things that I think little bit, it might just affect for a few minutes, for a few seconds. But the major thing that really impacted was, as I told you, observing, observing non-judgmentally as a neutral observer, and then also doing the affirmations, continuously pouring in those affirmations into my mind. Now this actually started giving so much of result that not after months or days or weeks, but then it started becoming so this that I would just get conscious about my anger after a few hours instead of the days and the weeks, the months. So this started again becoming more shorter and shorter. I would get aware about my anger, even like during my anger, I mean, the emotion is happening and simultaneously I'm observing myself. It's not something like a guilt, or it's not something like I should rectify myself. I was letting myself become angry, but I'm letting the anger out, but then at the same time observing it. It's a very difficult thing to explain. And then consciously I started, observing it, and it became so this that even before I got angry, sometimes, I would get that kind of a vibe that, oh, something's wrong, something is going to go wrong, and I can get angry in this situation, or there's some kind of a disturbance in the whole environment, and I would feel the possibility of my getting angry is very high. And this is how, I started actually observing myself. And as I observed like this, these incidents became very less and less, and finally they became so less that I would wonder, oh my God, what if, suddenly this increases at some time, I mean, that again, that fear is there. It's gone. Has it gone for good, or is it going to come back? But then again, I became non-judgmental and said it's okay if it comes back, but then I know now how to deal with it. So this is something like, I mean, these are, I think they cannot be found in books, and they cannot be taught through books, but then it is a practice. And I hope that this actually, by sharing my story, how, I actually practiced mindfulness, and then it really helped me. So hope it makes an impact on you, or influences you to start practicing mindfulness. And in this process, I actually suddenly, as an insight or an intuition, one day I was just, I was in a workshop, and then I shared that I wanted to write a book, and what could the name be? And I was just, and people were suggesting some names, and then they said, why not Story to Satori? So I just got it kind of a flash, intuition. And then I said, wow, this is such a nice name. And then I took this, and then since a couple of years I have been using it as my brand. I have my podcast, then I have my blog, as well as my all the other, like I have my Facebook and Instagram, and all these things. Everywhere I use this hashtag Story to Satori. Now let me tell you what Story to Satori, I mean, how does this make sense now? Now we all have the stories, I mean, about ourselves, about others, about the past, whatever has happened to us, it gets recorded as a story. Every incident that we go through, any trauma or any kind of it could be a guilt, or it could be a fear, it could be anger, it could any emotional impression, or a record is, I mean, it's getting recorded. The emotion gets recorded in a story format, you can say that. And then, there is some incident which has actually made you to get angry, and then that gets recorded in your mind, and it just gets stored. And what happens is, all these kinds of possibilities to get angry when it is there, so you just kind of, your brain just picks up some past incident, and then that kind of hijacks the whole situation, or you could link one instant to another, and then you can build a story about your incident happening right now. So I conduct workshops, and I conduct online training as well, and as to how you can actually let go of those stories. How can you let go of those emotions which are not at all serving you any purpose, which are disempowering, and how you can stand in your own power now, and how can you see the reality. In reality, probably something has happened, but then that's the reality, it's all over now. What can you do standing in your power? How can you gain access to your power? How can you actually gain access to the reality? Many people cannot even gain access to reality, what is happening. They don't realize that the instants are over, everything is over, the emotions are over, and then they need to relate to what is happening and take certain decisions, get the wisdom in that situation. So Satori actually means, it's a Buddhist term for enlightenment. So here it not necessarily spiritual enlightenment, it can be just enlightenment in the situation, getting wisdom, getting the wisdom nuggets, standing in reality, standing in the truth, and relating to the reality, what is there right now. And instead of going to the past, into your stories, or into the future, into some kind of an anxious, spinning some stories about the future, oh, this may happen or that may happen, you know, the mind keeps, it's like a monkey, and then it keeps jumping from the past and into the future, and it's never present in the movement. So Story to Satori is my model, where it means you need to actually let go of those, the past and the future, anxiety and the worry, and also the regret and the resentment of the past, and anxiety and the worry about the future, and stand in your power in the present moment and be mindful of the present moment. Observe with, you know, purpose and attention. Observe what is happening in the present moment, because the definition of mindfulness is actually, you know, observing the present, being in the present moment and observing with purpose what is happening. So that is the whole thing. And so the Story to Satori is, this is how it got created. And I want to create more videos and help out people who are looking out for actually taking back their power, taking back their the sense of perspective, gain the perspective, gain that decision making power, and gain touch with reality, and let go of those stories, let go of the disempowering emotions and negative beliefs, self doubt, and judgments, assumptions that we tend to live in. So looking forward to seeing you again in my next video. So stay blessed and be mindful. Thank you.